All right, guys, this is a midterm review on the topic colonial economy. This covers some topics that are both in chapter 3 and 4, and we're primarily going to focus on the English colonies again, because that's our focus for U.S. history. So one of the questions that we were investigating was about the development of the colonies and about this global economy that developed with the colonial system. So a little bit earlier in another video in chapter 2, we talked a bit about mercantilism, about creating colonies where colonies and resources create wealth. So this concept was applied to the colonial economy in the English region. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, first of all, the different kinds of economies in the colonies and then the global economy altogether. All right. So first, when you think about our colonies, there were 3 colonial regions. And again, let me draw a terrible map of the of North America. So we got Maine, Florida. Okay, so we've got 3 colonial regions here. So there is, this one would be New England, and then we have the middle colonies, and then we have the South. Okay, and you can look up the specific colonies that are in those regions. I'm not going to talk about them, but each of these colonies had a different economy that developed, and a lot of that was based on its geography. Okay, so in New England, for example, New England had a short growing season. It has colder winters. The days are a little bit shorter. So this was not a prime spot for agriculture. There was agriculture there. There was enough to feed the people. We call that subsistence farming. But there wasn't really enough this great farmland to make it very profitable. So instead, New England developed what we call a craft economy. So New Englanders made stuff, okay? And what kind of stuff did they make? Well, they trapped and killed animals, and they made fur pelts out of them, and they participated in the fur trade. They chopped down trees and made boats out of the lumber. They went fishing in the ocean and caught fish and whale and made whale oil and sold fish. They participated in the slave trade. So New Englanders were involved in this craft economy. They turned sugar into rum, and they turned rye into whiskey, those sorts of things, where they made stuff out of the natural resources at a small scale. Okay, the middle economy, the middle colonies had a little longer growing season, a little milder climate, and it had some great soil, particularly Pennsylvania and New Jersey had some great soil for growing. So what we start to see in the middle colonies is agriculture at a large scale. But we start to see agriculture for food. So things like corn and apples and wheat, and these things that could be grown at large scales, but also consumed by somebody. And so we get agriculture for the purpose of food. The other thing we start to see develop in the middle colonies is big trading ports. And so shipping. And Philadelphia and New York were 2 of the larger cities in the colonies. Philadelphia was the largest in the colonies, and that's because of its great location. You find a lot of shipping of international goods in and out, and also between the colonies in Philadelphia. And then finally, the South had the longest growing season, had the warmest climate, had long days, short winters, really nice climate for growing cash crops. And some examples of these cash crops are tobacco and cotton. And these cash crops required a lot of labor, and so Southerners turned to slave labor to grow these cash crops on a large scale. Initially, they used indentured servants, but if you remember Bacon's Rebellion, indentured servants rebelled because they wanted to own their own land once they became free, and so Southerners turned away from indentured servitude labor to slave labor because it ended up being less expensive in the long run. Okay, so we look at the colonial economies. This is how they developed, and again, it's largely dependent upon their geography. Now, when we look at the global economy, England, who oversaw these colonies and owned the English colonies in North America, right? So again, there's my bad North America, and over here is England, Ireland, and there's bad Spain again, and there's Africa. Okay, so can't forget Greenland. All right, so on the global scale, remember, Europeans were trying to create wealth through the taking of natural resources back to Europe and turning them to something good. So first of all, the meeting of the New World back in chapter 2, when the New World and the Old World met and they started to exchange things from the beginning, we refer to that as the Columbian Exchange. Okay, and that's just people, goods, diseases, plants, animals, all those things going back and forth between the old world, which is Europe, and the new world, which is North America. And that really transformed both the ecosystems and the population. In Europe, we saw the population go up significantly, but in the new world, we saw it go down significantly because of all the diseases they brought over, and Native Americans were not immune to it. When these things came in contact with each other through the Columbian Exchange, it did have a profound effect on each region. Okay, but in order to control the exchange of these things, European powers started to impose laws about where their colonies could trade, and England imposed a series of laws called the Navigation Acts. Okay, and these laws required their North American colonies to trade only with English businesses. And so what started to develop is we started to see natural resources go from North America over to England. We started to see manufactured goods be traded from England to Africa and back to the colonies. And then we started to see slave labor brought from Africa over to the colonies to build, to grow these natural resources, particularly in the South. And these series of trade routes enforced by the Navigation Acts become known as triangle trade, or these triangles of trade. So the Navigation Acts required the colonies to trade only with England, and because of that, resources went over, manufactured goods came back, but manufactured goods also went to Africa in exchange for slave labor, which was brought over. The slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, sometimes this gold arrow is referred to as the Middle Passage of the slave trade. It's the part where the slaves were actually on the boat, and it was a particularly terrifying experience. If you want to read more about that, you can go and take a look at your text as we talked about it. Okay, so again, just kind of a quick review of colonial economy. So both the regions of the colonies and then how this applied on the world scale.